Good day to everyone. Today we will discuss about hunger, eating, and health. So by the end of this video, we will understand why does many people eat too much and its health risk. To officially begin, let's discuss the energy basics, digestion, and utilization. The primary purpose of hunger is to motivate eating. So ang purpose daw kung bakit tayo nakakaranas ng gutom ay para ma-motivate tayo kumain. At ang purpose naman kung bakit tayo kumain is to supply the body with energy and molecular building blocks. Means na ang purpose daw ng pagkain natin ay para masupplyan ang katawan natin ng energy at ang mga molecular building blocks ito. Ang molecular building blocks are responsible for our tissue repair and synthesis. Let's proceed to digestion. So what is digestion? Digestion is the gastrointestinal process of breaking down food and absorbing its constituents such as lipids, amino acids, and glucose. So ang digestion daw ay isang gastrointestinal process. Pag sabihin natin gastrointestinal process, ito yung mga related sa stomach natin at saka intestine. So ito ay proseso na pag-breakdown ng food at pag-absorb ng mga nutrients or mga constituents ito gaya ng lipids, amino acid, and glucose. At atin niyang matakel later on. For explaining the shown illustration, let's proceed mula sa 3 forms of energy delivery. In order for us to understand what are these 3 energy delivery. So first, we have lipids or fats for long-term storage. This is most of the body's excess energy is stored as fats in our adipose tissue for long-term reserve. Kumbaga, yung mga hindi natin nagamit na mga energy ay ma-store yun siya sa ating adipose tissue as fat para magamit natin later on. So next, we have amino acids or proteins. It is building blocks and secondary reserve. So ang amino acid ay primarily used as molecular building blocks for tissue repair and synthesis. So siya rin ang mag-convert sa glucose through gluconeogenesis. Ang gluconeogenesis ay process ng conversion of protein sa glucose during prolonged fasting or yung mga time na nag-skip tayo ng meals. Next, we have glucose or simple sugar. That is primary direct source of energy or carbohydrates. As we all know that we really need carbohydrates in our body para tayo ay mag-function and maging productive tayo. Kasi kung walang glucose, hindi tayo makakagalaw ng maayos kasi kailangan yan siya sa ating brain. Let's go back in the digestive system. So first, it will occur in salivary glands because the chewing breaks up food and mamix siya sa ating saliva. Once na mamix na yan sa ating saliva, it will lubricate food and magbigay na siya sa digestion. So pagkatapos mo ito i-swallow, bababa ang pagkain mo or inanom mo papunta sa esophagus, papunta sa stomach. Stomach mo ay nag-serve din siya sa storage reservoir or doon nagpupondo yung mga kinain mo dahil gagawin niya ito into small particles para ma-process papunta sa amino acid. Pag naubos na yung contents sa stomach ay pupunta na iyon sa pyloric sphincter papunta sa duodenum. So, ang upper portion ng intestine ay doon nangyayari ang absorption. So, ang digestive enzyme sa duodenum, marami sa kanila ay napupunta sa gallbladder at saka sa pancreas para mag-breakdown ng protein molecules sa amino acid. Ang simple sugars naman and amino acid ay dadaan sa duodenum wall papunta sa bloodstream para makarga papunta sa liver. So yung mga fats ay magiging droplets gamit ang bile which is manufactured sa ating liver and ma-stored siya sa ating gallbladder and ma-release papunta sa duodenum. Pag ang fat ay hindi mapasa through duodenum wall, ay mapapasa ito papunta sa small duct, papunta sa duodenum wall, hanggang sa magpunta ito sa lymphatic system. Most of the remaining water and electrolytes are ma-absorb siya papunta sa waste or tinatapon siya papunta sa large intestine and the remainder is ejected from anus. Yan na yung mga dumi natin. So we already know that the digestive system Now let's proceed to the distribution of energy in an average person. The green one is the fat in our adipose tissue that consists of 85% of our energy, while the purple color is the protein in our muscle that consists of 14.5%, and the red one is the glycogen in muscle and liver that consists of 0.5% of energy. So let's talk about insulin. So ang insulin po ay isang hormone na na-produce po galing sa pancreas na siya po ang responsible to regulate blood glucose or yung mga sugar. So ang insulin po ay nag-promote siya ng gamit ng glucose bilang primary source of energy sa ating katawan. Second, it promotes the conversion of blood-borne fuels to form that can be stored. Meaning po, tinutulungan ng katawan natin na mag-store ng energy by turning the nutrients from our blood into stored energy forms that can be used mamaya pag kailangan natin. So pangatlo, it promotes the storage of glycogen in liver and muscle, fat in adipose tissue, and proteins in muscle. Energy storage. Most reserves are stored as fats. Sorry for the term, but kung mapapansin niyo po sa mga matataba or mga chubby, sila po ang kadalasang may fats or kung sa atin pa tinatawag natin sila na taba. So yun po, kung mapansin niyo ang mga chubby ay sila yung hindi masyadong engaged sa mga physical activity, while yung mga payat is napaka-engaged sa physical activity. Kaya po sila nagiging mataba or fat kasi hindi nila masyado nagagamit yung mga energy, kaya nagiging taba at na-stored lamang sa kanilang katawan sa adipose tissue. Next is the glycogen. So glycogen is stored primarily in the liver and muscle for rapid conversion to glucose, while the glucagon is a hormone produced in the pancreas that works to raise blood glucose levels by signaling the liver to release stored sugar. And yung gluconeogenesis is the conversion of protein to glucose. Free fatty acid is used as the body's primary fuel. Ang free fatty acid po ay isa sa primary energy source during the fasting phase of metabolism or yung mga time na you're skipping meals. Ketones is used by muscles as a source of energy during the fasting phase. So, ang ketones po ay ang alternative fuel source ng ating katawan at saka utak natin pag yung supply ng glucose is nag-low. Primarily, during to siya sa fasting phase. So, let's proceed to the 3 phases of energy metabolism. So, first, we have cephalic phase, the preparatory phase, which is initiated by sight, smell, or expectation of food. So, dito po sa cephalic phase, nangyayari ang pag-ready ng katawan mo para kumain. Dito na yun na kabilang na dito ang pagtingin, pag-smell, or pag-iisip ng pagkain. This preparation will lowering your blood sugar a little bit para mag-make room for the big meal that is coming. So, subsorptive phase, nutrients from a meal meeting the body's immediate energy requirements with the excess being stored. So, ang nangyayari po dito sa absorptive phase is you are eating and dinadigest mo po ang food mo. And ang lahat ng nutrients, kabilang na ang glucose, fats, and amino acid, are mapunta na po sila sa iyong bloodstream. Dito na rin mag-take charge ang insulin at will act as a manager na para bang sinasabihan niya ang mga glucose na gumawa ng bago para sa energy at yung rest sa glucose ay store as glycogen. Tapos yung mga sobrang energy is store sa fats para magamit later. So both cephalic phase and absorptive phase promotes utilization of blood glucose as a source of energy. It promotes conversion of excess glucose to glycogen and fat. It promotes conversion of amino acids to proteins and storage of glycogen in liver and muscle, fat in adipose tissue, and protein naman sa muscle. So they both inhibits or gina-prevent ilang conversion of glycogen, fat, and protein sa directly utilizable fuels such as glucose, free fatty acids, and ketones. Lastly, the fasting phase, energy being withdrawn from the stores to meet the body's immediate needs. Nangyayari po sa fasting phase, dito po ay yung stomach mo po is empty, and yung energy mo na ginamit mo sa last meal mo ay nagamit mo na. So, the glucagon will take charge and mag-act siya as a susi para ma-unlock yung mga energy na na-reserve mo. Glycogen na galing sa liver mo ay ipapakonvert ng glucagon ito pabalik sa glucose para i-feed ang iyong brain. In fasting phase, it promotes conversion of fats to free fatty acids and the utilization of free fatty acid as a source of energy, conversion of glycogen to glucose, free fatty acids to ketones, and proteins to glucose. So, ang fasting phase ay ina-prevent niya ang utilization of glucose by the body but not by the brain. Also, the conversion of glucose to glycogen and fat and amino acids to protein. It also inhibits the storage of fat in our adipose tissue.
So now, let's proceed to the two theories of hunger. The first one is set point assumption, a biological control method in humans that actively regulates weight towards a predetermined set weight or individual. So, sa theory na ito, malalaman natin na gutom tayo if we have a low energy level and glucose or fatty acids. So, your brain will tell you na gutom ka if you have a low energy level or glucose. And then the next is positive incentive theory, by Penel's view, suggests that behavior is motivated by the anticipation of external rewards such as money, praise, or promotion rather than intrinsic factors. So when we say positive incentive theory, is, for example, nito is, you would like to eat a cake kasi nasisense mo sa sarili mo na matamis siya and then smoothie siya sa bibig. So now, let's proceed to the glucostatic theory. Glucostatic theory thought to account for meal initiation and termination short term. So sa part na to, if you have a low glucose level, so your body will tell you na kumain ka. So, pag nasatisfy mo na yung sarili mo ng glucose, magdi-decrease na yung body mo na mag-react na gutom ka. And then the next is lipostatic theory, to account for long-term regulation. So, yun na nga, lipostatic theory, parang same lang sila ng glucostatic theory. If you have a sugar low level sa katawan mo, parang nagka-crave ka ng matamis, taste preferences. So, if your body will crave like something na maasim, matamis, maalat, so, it's a sign na yung kina-crave mo is yun ang kailangan ng katawan mo. Kailangan kainin. And then the next is positive incentive value. The anticipated pressure of behavior grown to it by the anticipated pleasure of eating. Same lang din to sila. Sasabi ko na yung parang kailangan mong kumain na parang natatakam ka sa pagkain na nakikita mo kasi parang nasisense mo na matamis, maasim, or maalat siya. So now that we all know that two theories of hunger, let's proceed to the factors that determine eating behavior. First is pre-meal hunger. We often eat based on the external factors like clock time. Pre-meal hunger is one of the most example of it is pag lunchtime. So, have you ever tried sa morning, you took a breakfast, and then sa lunchtime, hindi ka gutom. So, parang you need to eat kasi nakasanayan mo siya na majority sa mga tao is kumakain ng lunchtime. So, yun ang example ng pre-meal hunger. Pre-meal hunger is we often eat based on the external factors like that time. So, when we say pre-meal hunger is kakain lang tayo sa oras. So, one of the most example of it is pag lunchtime. So, if ever you try to take a breakfast and then hindi ka gutom sa lunchtime, so kumbaga ma-influensyan ka na kumain kasi nakasanayan mo na kumakain ka talaga everyday ng lunchtime. And then next is there is a theory that we call Pavlovian conditioning of hunger. View that hunger is often caused by the expectation of food, not by an energy reason. So, sa Pavlovian conditioning is, sa part na to, parang hindi yung energy yung nag-determine na gutom ka. Kasi doon pa lang sa food, parang dito na part is matatakam ka. One of the most example of it is pag nakakita ka ng mga masasarap na pagkain and then magugutom ka. That is what we call Pavlovian conditioning of hunger. Is this satiety. The motivational state that causes us to stop eating a meal when there is a food remaining. So, sa part naman na to is satiety na nagiging cause siya ng pagtigil natin pagkain kahit andyan pa yung pagkain. And then, satiety signals, gut distension, volume, nutritive density, and hormones from the gut. So, pag nag-signal na yung satiety mo, parang it's a sign na tumigil ka na magkain kasi there is a tendency na may madidepektuhan sa part ng katawan mo. And then, the next is sham eating. The study indicates that the satiety signals from the gut or blood are not necessary to terminate a meal. Satiety signals ay ang sinyalis ng pagkabusog. So, ito ang mensaheng ipinapadala ng katawan sa utak na nagsasabing busog ka na at hindi mo na kailangan kumain. And then the next is sham eating. Sa Tagalog o peking pagkain o kunwaring pagkain. So, example nito is parang nag-chewing gum ka lang. Yung taste lang doon ang pinapapasok mo sa katawan mo. Hindi mo kinakain yung food. Hindi mo siya pinapababa sa katawan. Sa tiyan mo pala. The next is the factors that determine eating behavior. Number 1 is appetizer effect. Small amount of foods consumed before a meal actually increases hunger rather than reducing it. So, it is majority pag bago ka kakain. So, parang kakain ka na pang appetizer. So, ang iba ginagawa nila itong ang purpose nito is para mapawi yung gutom nila. Hindi nila alam is parang pinupuko nito yung gana mo para kumain. And then the next is serving size in society. The amount of consumption is influenced by serving size. So, when we say serving size in society, so, have you ever tried pag gutom na gutom ka and then you try to serve yourself ng madami kasi sabi mo, gutom na gutom ako, so mauubos ko to. And then, after mo kumain, hindi mo talaga siya naubos kasi kumbaga yung mata mo yung binusog mo. And then the next is social influences in satiety. Feelings of satiety may also depend on whether we are eating alone or with others. So, sa part naman nito is, have you ever tried kumain mag-isa? So, parang feel mo, busog ka na kahit hindi naman talaga, which is, sa pagkain, kailangan talaga ng kasama. It's either partner or family mo. So, hindi naman siya necessary, but nabanggit siya sa eating behavior So, matatopic natin siya. So, social influences and satiety. Feelings of satiety may also be depend on whether we are eating alone or with others. So, minsan nakadepende siya kung may kasama ko or mag-isa ka. Kung, halimbawa, lumabas kayo ng tropa mo and then, naparami yung kain mo kasi nga marami kayo and then, magkaiba yun sila ng effect pag ikaw lang mag-isa. Kasi pag ikaw lang mag-isa, medyo konti-onti lang yung mga kinakain. And then the next is sensory-specific satiety. The number of different tastes available at each meal has a major effect on meal size. So, have you ever tried to eat ng iba-ibang lasa na parang ang bilis-bilis mong maumay? Kasi, yun na nga, full na yung body mo, yung taste preferences mo na kumbaga natikman mo na lahat ng lasa. So now, let's proceed to the neural mechanisms of hunger in satiety. The two important brain areas is the ventromedial hypothalamus or VMH, controls satiety or feeling full, and then the lateral hypothalamus LH controls hunger, feeling need to eat. So yung ventromedial natin is siya yung nagko-control na siya yung nagsisignal na busog na tayo, huwag na tayong kumain, huwag na natin pilitin. And then the lateral hypothalamus controls hunger, feeling need to eat. So, ang lateral hypothalamus naman natin ang nagko-control na or nagsasabi na gutom tayo, kailangan natin kumain. Effects when these areas are damaged or leisure defect. Pag na-damage yung ventromedial hypothalamus natin, it can cause to hyperphagia, excessive eating that can lead to obesity. So, pag na-damage yung ventromedial hypothalamus natin, there is a tendency na mag-cause ito ng hyperphagia. Kumbaga, sobrang pagkain. Lahat na lang kinakain mo. Which is, it's not okay kasi it can lead to obesity. Because the brain no longer receive that you are full. So, hindi na nagre-receive yung utak mo na busog ka kasi sira nga yung ventromedial hypothalamus mo. So, pag na-damage naman ang lateral hypothalamus natin is, it can cause to aphagia and adipsia. When we say aphagia is, kain ka lang ng kain. And then, adipsia naman is, hindi ka umiinom, not drinking, because the brain no longer signals hunger or thirst. Kasi pag na-damage yung lateral hypothalamus mo, hindi na magre-receive yung brain mo na busog ka and then nauuhaw ka. Effects when these areas are stimulated or stimulation effect. EMS stimulation suppresses eating. You stop eating even if food is there. So, ang stimulation effect naman ng ventromedial hypothalamus natin is suppresses eating. You stop eating even if the food is there. Parang kumbaga nawalan ka ng gana kahit andyan na sa harap mo yung mga pagkain sa lamesa. And then the lateral hypothalamus stimulation naman natin is induced eating. You start eating even if you're not really hungry. So, ang naman, lateral hypothalamus stimulation is kakain ka kahit hindi ka pa naman talaga gutom. Related processes, lipogenesis, increases fat storage. Ang role ng lipogenesis dito is nag-i-increase ng fat storage or more body fat. And then, lipolysis decreases the breakdown of the fat into usable usage. So, maganda ang role ng lipolysis kasi dinidecrease nito ang breakdown ng mga taba sa katawan natin into usable energy.
Serotonin and satiety. Serotonin is a brain chemical or neurotransmitter that helps control hunger, while satiety is the feeling of fullness or satisfaction after eating. Monoaminergic neurotransmitter serotonin is another chemical that plays a role in satiety. It is also a type of chemical messenger sa ating brain na nagatulong sa ating nerve cell para mag-communicate sa isa't isa. Prader-Willi syndrome is a genetic disorder which results from an accident of chromosome replication. So, yung mga taong may Prader-Willi syndrome, nakaka-experience sila ng extreme hunger and wala silang kabusugan. At saka yung metabolism nila ay slow, kaya sila ay mabilis lang sila mag-gain ng weight.
Now, let's proceed to the body weight regulation. Our body always tries to keep a balance between how much food we eat and how much energy we use. Ito na yung body weight regulation natin. And then, there are 3 parts of body weight regulation, which is the diet-induced thermogenesis, the BMR, or the basal metabolic rate, and then the NEAT or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, no? Ang diet-induced thermogenesis is the mechanism by which the body adjusts the efficiency of its energy utilization in response to its levels of body fat. Ito naman yung energy natin na ginagamit ng katawan natin para tunawin yung pagkain natin. And then the BMR or the basal metabolic rate is the ability to adjust the metabolic rate in response to changes in the level of the body fat. Yung basal metabolic rate naman is ito naman yung energy na ginagamit ng katawan natin kahit nagpapahinga lang tayo, no? It is the energy we use to stay alive even when lying down. Our heart rate is beating and our lungs is breathing. And of course, around 60 to 70% of our daily calories are burned just to being alive. And the next one is the NEAT, or the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Ito yung which is generated by activities such as fidgeting and the maintenance of posture and the muscle tone. Ito yung energy na ginagamit sa mga simpleng galaw lang tulad ng paglalakad, pagtayo, paggalaw ng kamay, or kahit yung pag-fidget lang. Kaya kapag equal ang energy natin, which is yung kinakain natin, and yung energy out natin, yung nasusunog na fats, no, is steady yung weight natin. Pero kapag naman mas marami tayong kinakain kaysa dun sa nasusunog, of course, tataba tayo. At kung mas marami naman tayong nasusunog kaysa dun sa kinakain natin, papayat tayo. And then, let's proceed to the settling point. The settling point, the level at which the various factors that influence body weight achieve an equilibrium. Equilibrium is a state of balance or stability. Yun yung equilibrium. Ito naman is kung paano nagbabalanse ang katawan natin, no? Sa pamamagitan lang naman nitong settling point theory. Noon kasi, pinaniniwalaan kasi ng mga scientists na yung set point theory daw is may fixed weight ang katawan na gusto ng katawan natin na panatilihin. Pero ngayon kasi, no, mas tanggap na ng settling point theory na nagsasabing nag-a-adjust ang timbang natin depende sa pagkain, sa lifestyle, at yung activity level natin. Ang settling point kasi is parang balanse ng timbang kung saan stable ang lahat ng factors natin, no, that act as a negative feedback signal, decreases appetite, and increases fat metabolism. Ito kasi yung nagsasabi sa brain natin na busog na tayo o may sapat na energy. Pinabawasan nito yung gana nating kumain, and pinapabilis din nito yung fat burning natin. And yung insulin naman is reflex visceral fat, also act as a negative feedback signal. Yung insulin is galing ito sa pancreas natin, and then tumataas ito tuwing kumakain tayo. Tinutulungan nitong i-store yung glucose natin, and sinasabi rin niya, nagiging feedback signal din siya. Sinasabi din niya sa brain natin na may sapat na tayo na energy. Like for example, no, kung healthy ka kumain at nag-exercise ka regularly, bababa yung settling point mo. Like, mas magaan at healthy yung timbang mo. Pero kung lagi namang junk food, laging coffee, kasi itong coffee na ito, it's not just like mapait siya. May mga add-ons kasi ito. Like for example, Spanish latte, no? May add-ons siya na sugar. Hindi lang, mapapansin nyo na manamis-namis siya. Kahit kape siya, manamis-namis pa rin siya. And kahit nga nagkakape lang tayo, nag-sugar pa rin tayo, no? And then, konti lang yung galaw, ganyan. Kumbaga, hindi talaga nag-exercise, nakaupo lang. So, tataas talaga yung settling point natin, kaya mas mabilis tayong tumaba. So, yung teoryang ito yung nagtuturo ng timbang natin nagre-result ng ating lifestyle at environment, hindi lang yung genes natin. We have differences in energy output. Of course, iba-iba ang bawat tao pagdating sa energy use or yung calorie burn natin. Unang-una, may differences in consumption. Factor that leads some people to eat more than others who have comparable access to food. May mga taong mabilis magutom o mahilig kumain, lalo na kapag lagi may masarap na pagkain sa paligid nila, no? Napapansin niyo ba yan? And then the next one is the differences in energy expenditure. Pangalawa naman is yung differences naman sa energy expenditure natin. May mga taong mas mabilis mag-burn ng calories kahit nakaupo lang dahil mabilis yung metabolism nila. And the next one is the genetic differences. Can influence food consumption and energy metabolism, and it is not surprising that many genes can influence body weight. May mga taong namamana ang pagiging madaling tumaba o pumayat. Like for example, no, may dalawang taong kumakain ng burger. Yung isa, hindi tumataba. Pero yung isa naman, agad-agad nagigain ng weight kasi ibang metabolism at genes nila, no? And then, there are causes and health risk of overeating or obesity, no? Ngayon, ano naman ang mga dahilan and yung risk ng pagkain or yung obesity natin? May mga genetic factors tayo, environmental factors, and the gut microbiome. Genetic factors is a predisposition to efficient metabolism or high incentive value for food. So, genetic factors is may mga taong naturally mabagal ang metabolism o mas mabilis yung store ng fat nila. And then the next one is the environmental factors, abundance of palatable, high-calorie food, positive incentive value naman. Sa panahon kasi ngayon, no, madali na makakuha ng pagkain. Lalo na pag fast food, eto na, milk tea dito, coffee doon. And then may mga snacks talaga na mataas yung sugar and yung calorie. Dahil laging available at masarap siguro, no? Madalas kumakain tayo kahit hindi naman tayo totally gutom. And then the next one is the gut microbiome. The collection of bacteria in the digestive tract plays a role in nutrient absorption and the overall health. Ito yung mga bacteria sa tiyan natin na tumutulong naman sa digestion natin. Pero minsan kasi, ang ilang bacteria, sobrang efficient na talaga sa pagkuha ng calories, kaya mas mabilis tayong tumaba kahit same food lang yung kinakain natin. And ano nga ba yung mga health risks nito? Kapag sobrang taba, no, and obesity, pwede magdulot ito ng mga sakit like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, at may iba pang sakit. Nakaka-apekto rin ito sa confidence and yung overall energy natin. Pero may treatment or may prevention din naman, no? Ang pinaka-epektibong paraan para mapanatiling healthy, siguro ang katawan natin is yung lifestyle change natin. Ibig sabihin, balanced meals, bawasan ng sugar and oily foods, at of course, mag-exercise regularly. Kahit simpleng lakad lang, araw-araw, no? Okay na yun siya. Pero kailangan din kasi ng consistency, no? Kasi kapag bigla kang nagbawas ng kain, mabagal din kasi yung metabolism mo. Sa mga sobrang obese naman, no? Minsan nire-recommenda talaga ng doktor yung gastric surgery, tulad ng gastric bypass, ganyan, gastric banding, para lumiit yung tiyan nila. Pero alam nyo, no, kahit may surgery, kailangan pa rin ituloy yung healthy lifestyle na yon. Kasi kung hindi, babalik pa rin siya doon sa timbang na yon. Kasi ano ba naman kung magpa-surgery ka, pero hindi mo naman nililimit yung sarili mo. Like, kumakain ka pa rin ng marami. And of course, babalik ka pa rin talaga dun sa dati mong timbang na yun. Kung hindi mo kinokontrol yung sarili mo. And may eating disorder din nito, no, which is yung anorexia and yung bulimia nervosa. Yung anorexia nervosa, ito yung kapag halos sinasabi kasi dito na voluntary self-starvation, extreme fear of gaining weight, and then distorted body image. Ito yung kapag halos hindi na sila kumakain, no? Kasi takot talaga silang tumaba. Kasi feel nila, no? Kapag kumain lang sila ng konti, feel nila tumataba na sila agad, ganyan. Pero sobrang payat naman din talaga nila. Pero kasi delikado talaga ito. Nagdudulot din talaga kasi ito ng weak heart, low blood pressure, hormonal imbalance, tsaka minsan nakamamatay din kasi siya kapag sobrang payat mo na talaga, no? And then the next one is the bulimia nervosa. Ito naman is kapag sobrang kain talaga, like sa maikling panahon, sobrang kain, binge eating. Baga siguro sa other term nito is ito na yung mukbang, no? Ito na siguro yung mukbang na kain ng kain, ganyan. Pero after that, itong si bulimia nervosa, no? After that, sinusuka niya. Like, force talaga na sinusuka niya, ganyan. And minsan nagfa-fasting or di kaya sobra-sobra naman din yung exercise na ginagawa para lang pumayat na naman. And then, nagdudulot din kasi talaga ito siya ng tooth decay, sore throat, dehydration, and heart problems. Kasi, pareho talaga ito, si bulimia nervosa, tsaka si anorexia nervosa. Pareho silang seryosong sakit and nangangailangan din talaga sila na they need medical and psychological help. No? Tapos, Hunger, eating, and health are all connected. Ang ating timbang ay hindi lang tungkol sa
Example of it is pag lunchtime. So, have you ever
natin. Pero may treatment, seryosong sakit and image. Ito yung kapag halos hindi na throat, dehydration, and heart problems. Kasi pareho talaga ito, si bulimia nervosa tsaka si anorexia nervosa. Pareho silang seryosong sakit and nangangailangan din talaga sila na they need medical and psychological help. No? Tapos, hunger, eating, and health are all connected. Ang ating timbang ay hindi lang tungkol sa itsura natin, not just only physical appearance. Ito tungkol din ito sa paano natin nababalanse yung katawan natin, no? Like, sobrang pagkain at sobrang diet naman is pareho naman din silang delikado. Balanse lang talaga. Balanse lang ang kailangan. Kaya siguro ang pinakamainam is eat healthy, move more, exercise, or kahit kung hindi makaya yung exercise na pang everyday, kahit maglakad lang everyday. And then, of course, listen to your body. No? Because remember guys, being healthy doesn't mean being skinny, no? It means naman kasi being strong, balanced, and taking care both of your body and your mind. Thank you.